The headlights of the black Mercedes-Benz S-Class sliced through the dusk like a predator's gaze, illuminating the cracked asphalt of a street that hadn't seen luxury in decades. Behind the wheel sat Esther Johnson, a woman whose silver hair gleamed as fiercely as her resolve, a titan of industry who'd clawed her way from nothing to the C-suite of a tech empire. But tonight, in this forgotten corner of the city, a single wrong turn would pit her against a man whose badge gleamed brighter than his judgment, a man who saw her not as a CEO, but as a trespasser in a world she'd long outgrown. What began as a routine traffic stop would unravel into a storm of defiance, viral outrage, and a reckoning neither could escape. Esther's fingers tapped the leather steering wheel, the rhythm syncing with the smooth jazz spilling from the car's Bose speakers. She was late, visiting her niece, Tanya, in this crumbling neighborhood always threw her schedule into chaos. The dashboard clock blinked 7:43 p.m., and her board meeting loomed at 8 o'clock via Zoom. She just pulled onto Elm Street, the tires humming against the uneven road when red and blue lights flared in her rearview mirror. She sighed, easing the car to the curb. A routine stop, she assumed. Maybe a taillight was out. She adjusted her silk scarf, a muted emerald green that matched her tailored blazer, and waited. The officer approached, his silhouette sharp against the sodium glow of the streetlights. Young, white, broad-shouldered, Officer Tom Carver, though she didn't know his name yet. His flashlight beam danced across the car's sleek curves before landing on her face. "Evening, ma'am," he said, his tone clipped, professional but edged with something colder. "License and registration." Esther offered a polite smile, reaching for her purse. "Of course, officer." She handed over the documents, her manicured nails catching the light. Tom took them, squinting at the license as if it were a forgery. "Esther Johnson," he read aloud, then glanced at her. "This your car?" Her brow furrowed slightly, but she kept her voice steady. "Yes, it is. I've owned it for 3 years." Tom tilted his head, the flashlight beam dipping to her hands, then back to her face. "Where'd you get it?" The question landed like a slap. Esther's smile faded. "I beg your pardon?" I said, "Where'd you get it?" His tone hardened, a subtle accusation threading through the words. "This is a $120,000 car. Doesn't exactly fit the vibe around here." Esther's chest tightened, but she'd faced worse. Decades of boardroom battles had forged her into steel. "I purchased it from a dealership in Chicago," she replied, enunciating each word. "I'm a CEO of Horizon Dynamics. Perhaps you've heard of us? We employ over 10,000 people nationwide." Tom smirked, a flicker of disbelief crossing his face. "CEO, huh? That's a new one." He tapped her license against his palm. "Step out of the vehicle, ma'am." Esther blinked, incredulity warring with her composure. "Excuse me." I said, "Step out. Now." Tom's hand hovered near his holster, a silent threat. The street was quiet, save for the distant bark of a dog and the hum of her idling engine. A few curtains twitched in nearby windows, spectators to a drama they didn't yet understand. Esther unbuckled her seatbelt, her movements deliberate. She stepped onto the pavement, her heels clicking with authority. At 5 feet 6 inches, she stood shorter than Tom, but her presence loomed larger. "Officer, I like your name and badge number." "Carver." 3921, he snapped. "Now, hands on the hood." "This is absurd," she said, her voice rising. "I've done nothing wrong. I'm on my way to a business meeting after visiting family. You have no probable cause. Hands on the hood." Tom barked, stepping closer. His breath smelled faintly of coffee and arrogance. Esther complied, but not before locking eyes with him, her gaze a silent indictment. The cold metal of the car bit into her palms as he patted her down, his movements rougher than necessary. Across the street, a teenager, Malik, a lanky 17-year-old with a phone in hand, emerged from stoop. "Yo, what's this?" he muttered, raising the device. The camera's red light blinked to life. Tom noticed. "Hey, kid, put that down or you're next." Malik smirked. "It's a free country, man. Keep going, I'm Liv." Esther seized the moment. "Young man, please keep recording." This officer seems to think a black woman can own a Mercedes. Tom's face reddened. I didn't say that. I'm doing my job, keeping this neighborhood safe. Safe from what? Esther shot back. A 70-year-old woman in a blazer? Tell me, Officer Carver, what threat do I pose? He faltered, then doubled down. You're not cooperating. That's enough for me. Within minutes, Malik's livestream exploded. The hashtag Mercedes Grandma trended on X, racking up thousands of views. Comments flooded in. This is insane. Racial profiling 101. Who is she? She's a boss. By the time Tom radioed for backup, the video had reached Horizon Dynamics' PR team. Esther's assistant, Priya, a sharp 30-year-old with a knack for crisis management, was already on the phone with the company's legal counsel. On Elm Street, a second cruiser arrived. Officer Lopez, a Latina in her 40s, stepped out, her expression wary. What's going on, Tom? She's resisting, he said, gesturing at Esther. Claims she's some big-shot CEO. Lopez glanced at Esther, then at the Mercedes. Did you run her plates? Tom hesitated. Not yet. Do it, Lopez said, her tone firm. She approached Esther. Ma'am, I'm sorry for the inconvenience. Can you tell me your side? Esther straightened, brushing off her blazer. I was pulled over without cause. Officer Carver questioned my ownership of my own car and demanded I exit the vehicle. I've been treated like a criminal for no reason other than the color of my skin. Lopez's jaw tightened. She turned to Tom. Run the plates. Now. The check took 30 seconds. The dispatcher's voice crackled through. Registered to Esther Johnson. No warrants, no tickets. Clean. Tom's smirk vanished. Lopez sighed. Let her go, Tom. But it was too late. Malik's video had hit 1 million views. News vans were en route. Esther's phone buzzed. Priya. Ma'am, we've got this. Legal's drafting a statement. Stay calm. I am calm, Esther replied. But I'm not done. Back at Horizon Dynamics' sleek Chicago headquarters, the 42nd floor boardroom thrummed with tension. The mahogany table gleamed under LED lights as Esther faced her executive team. 10 suits, half of whom fidgeted nervously. The viral video played on a wall-mounted screen, Tom's voice barking orders while Esther stood unbowed. We've got a PR nightmare, said Greg Hensley, the CFO, a wiry man with a perpetual frown. Stock's down 3% already. Investors are spooked. It's not a nightmare, Priya countered, her tablet glowing with analytics. It's an opportunity. Social sentiment is 80% positive. People love Esther's defiance. We spin this right, it's a brand win. Esther leaned forward, her voice cutting through the chatter. This isn't about spin. It's about truth. That officer didn't see a CEO. He saw a stereotype. We're not papering this over with a press release. What's the play then? Asked Tara Lynn, the COO, her sharp eyes locked on Esther. We sue, Esther said. The precinct, the city, Officer Carver personally if we can. Horizon stands for innovation and justice. Let's prove it. The room fell silent. Greg coughed. Litigation's risky. Legal fees alone will be a rounding error compared to what we'll gain, Esther interrupted. Priya, give me a meeting with the mayor. Tara, pull our community outreach budget. We're doubling it. Focus on Elm Street. As the team scrambled, Esther's mind drifted to Tanya, her niece. The 25-year-old single mom lived in a sagging duplex on Elm, raising a son on a cashier's wage. Esther had offered to move her out years ago, but Tanya refused. This is home, she'd said. Now, Esther saw the stakes clearer than ever. The lawsuit hit like a thunderclap. Filed within 48 hours, it named the city, the police department, and Tom Carver, alleging racial profiling and excessive force. The media frenzy doubled. Protests erupted outside the precinct. Chants of justice for Esther echoing through the night. Tom, meanwhile, spiraled, holed up in his one-bedroom apartment. He scrolled X, where hashtag Officer Carver trended alongside insults. Racist pig. Power-tripping clown. His phone buzzed with texts from buddies, some supportive, others distant. His girlfriend, Jen, a nurse with a no-nonsense streak, wasn't sympathetic. You messed up, Tom, she said, chopping onions for dinner. You didn't even check her plates? That's basic. I thought she stole it, he muttered, cracking a beer. You see a car like that on Elm, you assume. You assume what? Jen snapped. That a black woman can't have nice things? Come on. He bristled. I'm not racist. I'm a cop. I see patterns. Patterns aren't people, she said, slamming the knife down. Fix this, or you're sleeping on the couch. At the precinct, Captain Hargrove wasn't kinder. You've got internal affairs breathing down my neck, Carver. Desk duty's the least of your worries. They're talking suspension without pay. Tom slumped. She escalated it. I was just doing my job. Your job isn't harassing innocent people, Hargrove growled. You're lucky she didn't press assault. Days later, Esther returned to Elm Street. Not in her Mercedes, but on foot, flanked by Priya and a news crew. Tanya met her at the duplex, her 4-year-old son, Jaden, clinging to her leg. Auntie, we didn't have to do all this, Tanya said, eyes wide. I did, Esther replied, hugging her. This isn't just about me. The plan was simple. A community meeting to announce Horizon's investment. New playgrounds, a tech lab, job training. But trouble brewed. A group of counter-protesters, egged on by a local talk radio host, gathered across the street, waving signs. Cops aren't the enemy. Stop playing the race card. Malik, now a minor celebrity, live-streamed again. Their mad cause Mrs. J's winning, he narrated, panning to the crowd. Then it escalated. A burly man in a red cap, Rick, a mechanic with a chip on his shoulder, shouted, You're the problem, lady, stirring up trouble where there ain't none. Esther faced him, unflinching. Trouble was here long before me, sir. I'm just shining a light on it. Rick lunged forward, but Tanya stepped in, fierce. Back off, my aunt, or I'll make you regret it. The crowd surged, protesters versus counter-protesters, until Lopez's cruiser screeched up. She and 2 officers broke it up, cuffing Rick as he yelled. Esther watched, calm but resolute. This is why we fight, she told Priya. Weeks later, the lawsuit settled. The city paid $2 million, half to Horizon's New Justice Initiative, half to Esther personally. She donated it all to Elm Street. Tom avoided personal liability, but took a demotion. At Horizon, Esther's legend grew, stock rebounded, and her face graced Forbes, the CEO who took on the system. Tom's reckoning came quieter. Late one night, he Googled Esther. Articles detailed her rise. Born in public housing, widowed at 30, a coder who cracked algorithms while her kids slept. Shame hit him hard. He wrote a letter, awkward, halting, apologizing. He didn't send it, but kept it in his locker, a reminder. Malik thrived. Esther's scholarship sent him to NYU's film school. His first short, Elm Street Blues, won a student award dedicating it to Mrs. J, the realist OG. Months later, Elm Street glowed. The block party Esther promised unfolded. Jazz blared, barbecue smoked, kids raced on a new playground. Tanya ran a lemonade stand, Jaden giggling beside her. Esther arrived in her Mercedes, waving to cheers. Tom showed up, off-duty, hesitant. Malik spotted him. You good, man? Yeah, Tom said. Just here. Esther approached. Officer Carver. Tom, he corrected, hat in hand. I'm sorry, Mrs. Johnson. For real this time. She nodded. Prove it. Dance with us. He laughed, awkward, then joined the kids. Esther watched, the jazz swelling. The street pulsed with life, fractured, healing, hers. She turned a stop into a start, a battle into a bridge. And as the stars lit the sky, she drove home, victorious.